Vamos a dar inicio a nuestra charla con la presidenta de ACI Mundial, la señora Paulin Green, que nos ha dado el honor con su presencia de acompañarnos en este evento del Comité de Equidad de Género, donde todas y todos estamos muy pendientes de sus palabras, de su mensaje sobre el liderazgo y sobre todo lo que nosotras tenemos que hacer en el movimiento cooperativo. Voy sin más preámbulos a darle la palabra a la señora Paulin Green.
Well, thank you very much indeed, colleagues, friends, fellow cooperators. It's great to be here. I'm very conscious that I spoke to some of you in Mexico at the last meeting. I think some of you were there. And at that time, I was a candidate to be president of the ICA. And your meeting was just before the meeting in Geneva at which I was to be elected. And I went to that meeting feeling a very strong sense of support from all of you. You've given me a great send-off in Mexico, and it meant a great deal to me. So I'm very honoured to be back here to talk to you now after a year as president of the International Cooperative Alliance, the first woman president for 114 years, which some people think is great. She's a woman president, but it's actually not good that it's taken 114 years for the co-op movement to elect a woman president of its global organisation. And when I saw the agenda here, which is talking about leadership, women and leadership in our movement, it made me realise, or if I didn't already know, just how significant it is that we actually look at how we can make sure that our movement across the globe actually has women in positions of strength. Good women, because we are lots and lots of good women around the world, but we need to have some of our women in key areas of leadership across the globe. Because to those of you who were in Mexico last year, I think I told a story about how it was that 200 years ago, women became equal with men in membership. Because 200 years ago, in the United Kingdom, which is my country, in Rochdale, which is where the first cooperative shop that we today would recognise as being a cooperative shop, a modern cooperative shop, the first one was opened nearly 200 years ago, 170, 180 years ago in Rochdale. And when they were looking for people to become members of that co-op shop, they used to open the office 1 hour a week, and the men, who were all workers in the mills and the factories, would go in with their pennies and put their pennies in to the co-op until they had put in £1. And when they were £1, they became a member of the co-op. And it was always men. And one day, a woman, a working woman working in a mill making cotton in the UK, came into the office, and the Rochdale pioneers behind the counter were very surprised to see a woman. And she went up to them and she threw down on the table in front of them £1 whole pound's worth of pennies that she had collected over many, many months. And they didn't know what to do, the men sitting behind the desk. So they went off into a back room to discuss what should they do with this woman who wants to be a member. And they came back out and they felt, in the spirit of our movement, that she had to become a member. And from that moment, 200 years ago nearly, women have been able to join the co-op movement as equal members with the men. And across the globe, when you look at the figures in many countries, at grassroots level, activists level, in local co-ops, women account for over 50% of the activists and the workers in many countries across the globe. But when you look at the hierarchy at the top, it's all men. Now, I'm not anti-men, don't get me wrong, but that does not reflect the competence and the strength of our movement. Because we know that there are many, many competent women in our movement. We see and work with them all the time. And we have got to find ways of making the hierarchy of our decision-making open to women. We've got to have some strategies that mean our movement is in the forefront of demonstrating that we believe in equality all the way through the movement. Now, you know, the 21st century, many people believe, is going to be the century of women. That our economy is going to reflect the needs of women, and that our economy will be largely populated by women and reflecting a woman's input into all sorts of sectors of our economy. Now you might think, well, that's rubbish, but actually some very powerful international researchers have actually come up with exactly that analysis. And the private sector across the globe, the private sector knows very well that they have to start encouraging women into their organisation. Not only because their organisation should reflect women at the top level of their businesses, because it makes a difference to the decision-making of their businesses, but because women's interests are now so clearly dominating purchasing power, often women are deciding on household spending, that it's important to reflect the way a woman thinks in the leadership of those organisations. And so many of our private sector competitors across the world, big companies, small companies, are learning that lesson. They're reading the research that's coming out, and they're learning the lesson. And they are beginning to engage much more with the women's agenda, and with training for women, skills for women, self-confidence raising for women, so that women are actually playing key roles, increasingly key roles, in the economy, in the different parts of the economy in various countries. It would be a tragedy if our movement, which 200 years ago said women are equal with men in our movement, if our movement didn't start showing the same determination and strength to help women to get into positions of significance across the movement. And this isn't just an issue that is important to you here, it's across the globe, everywhere.
El Comité de Género de Género nos dio una sorpresa antes de iniciar la conferencia de la señora Paulin Green. Entonces Nancy